Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale. Thanks for joining me today. I hope this video finds you all doing well. Today we have Tag back on the channel. Tag, how you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, Ash? I'm doing fantastic today.
Good. How are you liking the new meta right now? It's crazy right now. We're only on like day 3 at the time of this recording. Probably going out in a day or two. But anyway, what do you think so far?
So far, it's pretty hilarious. Everyone that was still running bridge spam in the last meta, there's a lot of them still running it right now, and people still haven't really evolved from the decks that they should be running now. There's still a lot of graveyard. Graveyard has kind of lost its place in the meta, and you're seeing a lot of evolutions in the meta very quickly. For example, I think the biggest changes, Executioner was so prevalent in the last meta. Executioner is starting to fall off the map because Night Witch isn't really that big of an issue, because there's not as much Executioner NATO. Then there's going to be a lot more Miner, and there's going to be a lot more LavaHound. Because there's less NATO, you're going to have more Miner. Because there's a lot less Executioner NATO, then you're going to have more LavaHound. And then the cycle just keeps evolving from there. And it's
I was going to ask, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's more Miner and more LavaHound. So what do you suspect we'll be seeing more of to kind of counter that, if you take it like one more play on the chess match in the future?
I mean, maybe we could see Hog Executioner NATO with Lightning come back into the meta, because that counters both archetypes. I've been seeing that a little bit too.
That's true.
I don't know. I think that it's always going to keep changing. There's always going to be a counter deck to a specific thing, but the big point is right now there's no like defining auto-include card that you have to have in your deck. There's no Night Witch that is just beyond busted that you have to build your deck around. It's so nice to see that.
Yeah, it really is. I am really enjoying this new meta right now. I've been playing around a lot. I went on an epic losing streak last night, but I didn't even mind it because I was experimenting with new decks and stuff, you know, and actually landed on a deck that I really rebounded with and really loved. A Golem deck, so not for today. But I guess my question to you is before we get into this specific deck, it's kind of a minor control deck, which is awesome to see back into the meta. I wanted to ask for your take on the 2 cards that got probably hit the heaviest, Night Witch and Graveyard. Do you think those cards are necessarily dead? I was watching Asia RPL today, Team Massive Dragons, and a lot of those guys were running Night Witch still. Wow, what do you think about Night Witch right now?
So I think Night Witch is still decent in one deck, and that's going to be Golem. I think it's very niche at the moment, and I think that Graveyard, to answer that question, I think Graveyard is just going to be dead. I don't think anyone that's at a high level is going to be playing Graveyard in a competitive setting at all in the next coming week or so.
Wow. Yeah, and I like how you added the coming week or so, because it does take a little bit of time for people to adjust to the meta as it continues to evolve. And you know, it's hard to disagree with you there, Tag, because you think about it, in between the Bat buff, the Ice Wizard buff, and then just a straight-up Graveyard nerf, it puts Graveyard into a tough spot. Would you have rather seen a rework?
I would have loved to see a rework in RNG. I think I think Graveyard was in a decent place, and I think that the RNG aspect of it needed to be eliminated completely. You need to have a predictable pattern where everyone knew where the skeletons were going to spawn. You drop a Graveyard down in the same spot, you have a tank, it does the exact same damage every single time. That's how it should have been reworked, and unfortunately they just decided to nerf it instead.
Yeah, I have a feeling that they might revisit it, especially if it kind of falls off the radar, but who's to say, I guess. So we talked a little bit about the new meta. Why don't you talk a little bit about minor decks specifically and how they fall into the new meta? Like, why aren't you playing like a straight-up minor cycle, like really cheap version? Why do you prefer this version that we're going to be looking at today? So I guess this is pretty cheap. I guess you have the Inferno Tower though in there as well. So I guess it's kind of like a pseudo. It is a cycle deck, so it's like minor cycle with some defense thrown in there. But tell us about the deck.
This deck is pretty interesting. I took out Skeletons and I put in Bandit. Skeletons just really aren't fulfilling their role anymore for me. I feel like after the nerf, bringing them down to 3, they're just gotten so much. They're just so much worse. It's like they're not even comparable. They don't distract a Bandit anymore. You were able to drop them off to the side, kill a full health Bandit. You're able to kill Battle Ram, and I just feel like the DPS is really lackluster. They're in a really interesting spot where at 3 they're really underpowered, but at 4 they're very overpowered. So it's going to be interesting to see if they bring them back up. But that's why I like having Bandit, and Bandit allows the deck to function a little bit differently. So you're gonna have a lot more trouble against decks with that have Tombstone. You're gonna have a lot more trouble with decks that have Tombstone, Goblin Gang, and like Skarmy, like multiple counters to the Bandit. Then you're essentially gonna just have to play like a minor control deck. But the way I really like to play it is I like having 2 win conditions in this deck. I like having the minor and the poison, and then also having the Bandit. So I have 2 ways of winning the game. And if I get some huge connection with my Bandit and I get a lot of damage on one of the towers, I can actually switch towers. And I don't know, I just really like the adaptability of the deck.
Okay, so what is this? Okay, well let's just cover the basic question, right? So you have 2 win conditions. What one is going to be best suited for different archetypes? So why don't you just kind of, where are you really pounding the minor poison, and then where are you going more, bandit type counter pushes or whatever with the minor?
Okay, so against like Logbait and decks that have Goblin Gang and Tombstone, you traditionally drop your minor and then you wait and see if they drop another Goblin Gang or something else, and see if you can hit the Tombstone and their Goblin Gang. And you don't poison if they don't drop anything else.
Okay.
Then you just get minor damage. But those are the type of games that you just want to go in for minor chip damage, and you're not really expecting to get your Bandit through. You're just dropping your Bandit to cycle and make them spend 3 elixir as well. So other decks like Expo, you're literally not even going to get Bandit through probably. You're probably not even going to get minor damage on the tower. You're just going to be chipping away with your spells and tanking with your Knight, your Skeletons, your Ice Spirit, and just using Poison and Log to damage out the Expo. Other decks that you can actually expect to try to get your Bandit through, Golem decks that if they drop a tank in the back, it's very hard for them to properly defend with 2 to 3 elixir defend the Bandit. A lot of times they have really awkward card cycles, and you can catch them off guard and get a Bandit through and do some massive damage.
I wanted to go back to the Expo, if you don't mind, for a second, because Expo and Mortar, 2 decks that I think Siege is going to see a big uptick in usage. We've already seen it so far. But I wanted to get, I was playing a minor deck the other day when I was going on my epic losing streak, right? And I kind of had difficulty. I've seen pros handle going against an Expo deck with a minor deck in several different ways. What do you do? Do you send in the minor between the Expo and the tower and then poison? Is that how you handle it? Or what do you do with your minor again when they place the Expo?
There are very, very niche situations that I'll ever drop my Inferno Tower. Usually you don't do it. I've done it I think I did it in one of these replays. I don't know if I showed that one. But okay. I did it once. Most of the time you want to use your tank, your Knight. You want to save your Knight because it's your beefiest unit in the entire deck. You drop it near your tower. You make sure not to drop an Electro Wizard or anything else that's fireballable near the tower. You poison the Expo and then you log it. And then if you don't have like anything else to distract the Expo, then sometimes you'll minor it. But usually I like being safe. I like minoring the Expo. B-Rad doesn't really minor the Expo as much as I do. I've noticed that. But just if you're playing extremely safe, you generally just don't want to eat the damage. You make the game a little bit longer. And you're going to win in the long run just because you're not going to eat any damage if you keep minoring the Expo.
I noticed how you said that B-Rad plays it a little bit differently than you, and B-Rad is, of course, known as like one of the best minor poison players out there in the game, along with you too, Tag. What are other differences between a guy like B-Rad and your style in terms of playing a minor poison deck? Are there a lot, or is it mostly similar, except for little niche cases like you kind of pointed out there?
I've kind of mimicked my style after his, but at the same time, he's far and away the best minor poison player in the game. And I mean, I've gotten a lot of tips from him. I've kind of learned the deck from him, so to say. So honestly, if he's doing something like minoring the tower instead of minoring the Expo, he's just that confident that he's actually able to defend that. In a lot of situations, sometimes I'll minor the Expo, or sometimes I'll minor the tower. But if you guys are trying to learn this deck, I suggest minoring the Expo instead of minoring the tower. Minor the back of the Expo, so after it kills the Expo, it walks up and starts chipping away on the tower, and that's going to be probably your best value or your best bet.
So this is kind of tearing down the fourth wall for viewers out there, but I've been trying to get B-Rad on the channel for like a long time, right? And I never really talk about this, about pros who aren't keen on coming on. And he said he doesn't want to give away all his secrets, first of all, which is totally understandable. And he also said that he's a little bit, I'm not sure how he feels about like coming on voice. But with all that said, you said that you picked up like a bunch of tips that made a big difference in your gameplay from B-Rad. So maybe through osmosis, were there a couple tips that he gave you maybe early on when you're trying to take this deck to the next level that kind of stick out in your mind now as being, okay, that is something it was key to my success with this deck later on?
Yeah, the biggest thing is just focus. It's a chip deck, right? You're not going to have huge comeback potential. You got to make sure that you mitigate a lot of damage early on. You don't really want to like eat 1,000 damage and counter push. So make sure that you're defending first and then counter pushing with a miner second.
Okay.
That's just kind of the basic concept of the deck. And another thing that he taught me was the two things that stand out in my mind that he first taught me was how to beat Expo, poison logging the Expo every single time. That was very interesting to me. That was the biggest tip that he gave me because I was struggling with that matchup. Every single time was losing. Gave me that tip. I ended up winning every single time after that.
Wow.
The other thing was don't use your Inferno Tower in a lot of situations against Hog Rider. You can actually get away with like Ice Spirit plus Knight and the Hog Rider only gets one hit on the tower. If you drop Electro Wizard, high up Electro Wizard, the Hog Rider will only get one hit on the tower. And if you drop Electro Wizard plus Skeletons or Electro Wizard plus Ice Spirit, the Hog Rider actually gets 0 hits on the tower. And what that does is, if you're dropping 5 Elixir, if you're dropping Ice Spirit and you're dropping Electro Wizard, and then that Electro Wizard counter pushes, that's going to be a lot more efficient for you because it demands a response than dropping a Inferno Tower on defense. Because if you drop 5 Elixir of an Inferno Tower, the Inferno Tower is just going to be chilling there. Your opponent doesn't have to respond to it, whereas an Electro Wizard at full health will do like 1,000 damage. They have to dictate, or they have to give some elixir to defend that, you know?
That's a good point. That's a really good point on the Inferno Tower. What about starting plays with this deck? It's kind of a two-part question. Starting plays, A, and B, how often, because I wanted to ask you about sending in a miner as the first play, which is probably pretty dumb in case they have a pump or something. But I guess, okay, two separate questions. Number one is, what is an ideal starting play? And the second question, I don't know why I phrased it like this, is going to be, how often do you send in a solo miner at a tower for chip?
All right, so there's actually really only one safe play with the Bandit deck. There's 2 safe plays with the miner poison skeleton deck. Cycling if you're running the skeleton variant, cycle skeletons in the back as your first play. Then the second precedence is dropping Ice Spirit at the bridge. With the Bandit deck, you only want to be dropping Ice Spirit at the bridge if you're playing a very competitive match. Because if you drop Knight, then they drop Expo opposite lane, you kind of just lose the game because that's your best tank. If you drop Miner, then they can pump up and you're at a disadvantage. But I'd much rather drop a Miner as my first play than drop a Knight and lose Expo. That's very infuriating, not having the Knight in cycle.
Yeah.
If you drop Electro Wizard, you can just be in a lot of awkward situations if they go in for like Minion Horde heal, Battle Ram, and you don't have Electro Wizard plus Ice Spirit. So there's a lot of situations that like I'd rather not drop other cards in a competitive setting besides my Ice Spirit at the bridge. I'd rather wait for my opponent to make my first maneuver. And that's kind of the best thing, or the best bet in a competitive setting. But when I'm playing Grand Challenge games, or I'm playing like on stream, I got to make the games keep going. So I would either cycle Knight or I would cycle Bandit. I would actually cycle Bandit as my second best card. Sometimes I'll cycle that at the bridge. That's actually a safe bet with the Bandit variation. But other than Ice Spirit and Bandit, I generally don't cycle too much. But yeah.
How many, if you're going against a beatdown deck, whether it be a giant deck or a golem deck, and your opponent plays their tank in back, or even a Lava Hound deck, right? Your opponent plays their tank in the back. What are you going to do? Like, what is your first ideal scenario, and what is your second backup in case you have funky cards or something?
So the best thing is like against Golem decks and against Lava Hound decks. Lava Hound decks, you always have to pressure opposite lane no matter what. Otherwise, you will lose the game. I will pressure even with just a Naked Knight at the bridge because it makes them spend 3 elixir. It makes them spend minions. It makes them spend Goblin Gang, something that you can kind of just ignore. and then they won't have enough elixir and single elixir for a balloon, lava hound, and lightning push. It's just not possible. And a lot of times you're able to snipe a lava hound with Inferno Tower up high because they won't have enough elixir since they actually had to defend their tower from a full health knight. So there's things like that, but generally you want to be pressuring opposite lane, even if it's like miner plus skeletons. They sometimes will even arrow the skeletons in miner, and that's hysterical. Deep into the game against a lot of LavaLoon decks, I will actually go balls deep. I will drop Electro Wizard, I'll drop Knight, and I'll drop Ice Spirit opposite lane, and I'll try to take their tower. But that's when I know their card order, I know what they have in their hand, and if they can't punish me with like a minion horde, I'm going to be fine doing that, and I'll have my log ready for the Goblin Gang. So it's very different depending on the decks, but generally you want to be pressuring opposite lane against a tank deck that's heavy. Not really giant decks, but
yeah.
Golem and Lava Hound decks, you want to be pressuring opposite lane with at least 3 elixir, especially like a Bandit against Golem decks or LavaLoon decks, and that will actually make sure that they don't get their parade push, everything in one lane, their dream push, what they want to do, you know?
Is it ever worth going like incredibly hard when they drop a golem opposite lane? When I say incredibly hard, I mean like whatever, bandit, skeletons, miner, and poison, knowing that you can kind of lean on Inferno Tower and maybe take their tower, or is that just too aggressive?
I don't like using poison on offense too much.
Okay.
I feel like poison's pretty good on defense, especially like back in the Night Witch meta, you always needed poison on defense, but I mean, still people are still running Night Witch, so you still might need poison. I don't like going too deep with poison. I'd rather just go in with a bandit, and I feel very comfortable winning the game because I feel like after I defend a push, you stagger your Inferno Tower, you stagger your Electro Wizard. If I had a YouTube video up on that like 2 days ago, I think, on it. If you want to see that, it was covering the Golem matchup specifically. You stagger the Inferno Tower and the Electro Wizard and the tower so that they have to pick between the Electro Wizard or the Inferno Tower with the lightning. And if they have that choice, they're kind of in a lot of trouble. Another big thing is after they lightning your Inferno Tower, you want to use the Ice Spirit. If you use the Ice Spirit, you're going to get a lot more value out of it because the Golem won't actually, it'll be sitting there while the Inferno Tower is at a sliver of HP and it DPSs down their Golem. And you can tell that they're raging so hard when that happens. It's probably like the best feeling.
Yeah, that's really good advice there. It's a nice little tip, the extra tip that you provide. By the way, I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but you guys need to subscribe to SirTag. The link will be in the description below. He has really, really good deck guides specifically, and he touches into little scenarios like we kind of just outlined there that can give you the tips that you need to really take your game to the next level. Tag, before we go, do you want to do like a play-by-play on the Lava Miner matchup?
Yeah, no doubt, man.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to pause it at the beginning. I'm paused at 3 minutes. Before we press play, just tell us why this is such a difficult matchup.
So it's a really difficult matchup because you're running the Bandit variation. And you're running the Bandit variation into Tombstone and Goblin Gang. So you can't really expect that Bandit to do anything in the entirety of this matchup. And then, not only that, he's running Lava Hound with Miner and Fireball. So the Lava Hound, like, you can't really expect that he's not having Balloon, and when you find out that he's not having Balloon, he can kind of just chip you away with Minor Fireball, and you're not really able to always use the poison on offense because you need it on defense to actually counteract the Minor or the Lava Hound. Because if you don't clean up the pups and you're not poisoning them, and then he drops a Balloon, you kind of just lose the game because you need to clean up those pups.
That's true.
Yeah,
if LavaLoon becomes even more popular in the game, like it's already, we can already tell it's coming back. But if it like really blows up, would you make any further adjustments to this deck to try to bolster it against LavaLoon, or do you think it's pretty safe right now?
In competitive play, if I was knowing that I was going to be playing against someone that plays LavaLoon, I would actually take out Bandit and I put in Skeletons, and then it would give me a faster cycle, and I would feel way more comfortable because it's a less dead card in this matchup. So I just wanted to show you probably one of the harder matchups with this deck because, yeah, it's just very hard.
All right, well, give us some of that asserting dominance play-by-play. You ready to press play?
Yeah, 3, 2, 1, go.
All right,
okay.
Cool.
So in this matchup, one of the biggest things that you want to be doing is I'm going to be defending, or when he drops a Lava Hound on the right lane, I would want to drop a Knight left lane right at the bridge. Unfortunately, I didn't really have like Oh, actually, no. This was the replay that I actually was able to do that. The reason I do that is I want to make sure that he's actually having to defend that. He's dropping the Goblin Gang, and watch how I snipe this Lava Hound. He wouldn't actually be able to do anything in this situation. He's literally dropping dropping the Mega Minion. He's thinking that he's going to get some damage. I poison on defense. Big reason why I don't actually drop my Electro Wizard is I don't know if he has Bloon or not. Imagine I use my Electro Wizard to clean up those Lava Hound pups, and I use that to clean up the Mega Minion. What do I have if the dude drops a Bloon left lane? Absolutely nothing. So on defense, you got to save the poison. You got to use it, and that's why you can't really be too aggressive with the poison early on before you know their deck, their rotation, and what they have. So you're going to be seeing me saving my poison for defense, and the only time I really use it on offense is when I clip a Goblin Gang and a Tombstone, and I'm actually able to cycle back for it on defense. Those are literally the only situations that I'll be doing it.
So you know this early into the match that you know that you're going to need your poison.
Yeah, I mean, when I see a Lava Hound, I'm pretty petrified. I know that I probably need my poison. I'm playing really safe. I don't know if he has Minion Horde because a lot of people keep that. It's really difficult to determine what he could potentially be running. Because a lot of people just don't drop their Bloon. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I think that's one of the weak spots of my own game. That's the reason I asked you, is because oftentimes, like, whether it be, you know, a long, hard day's work, you get home and, like, I don't know what, I'm just making excuses here, but, like, I don't have the cognitive awareness. It's something I really need to get better at, of just knowing that, okay, he's running this, I need to save this. You know, like, it's obvious when it's like a hog, you need to save your cannon. But going, like, next level, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. This is, I mean, I feel like, to be honest, it doesn't actually happen without you making the mistake of actually doing it. So I'll go over my replay. I'll be like, how did I lose this game? Why did I not have an Electro Wizard or an Inferno Tower for the Bloon? And I look at the game and I realize, hey, I actually elected to drop my Electro Wizard to clean up the pups instead of dropping poison. So you can look at games
watching
from that.
Replays.
Get those scars. Get your brain scarred from having a horrible mistake, and then you'll never do it again.
It's truly the best advice that one can give. So again, you're dropping the knight here in the opposite lane.
Just making sure that I keep him honest. I make sure that he's not having a parade push. I don't really want to deal with a parade push. That's something that I'm not really about dealing with. It's too scary. If they dictate the flow of the game completely, then they're probably going to win the game. I continuously drop Bandit, even though, like, it's probably not going to get damaged. It made him drop Goblin Gang right there. He didn't need to drop Goblin Gang. So everything is going really well for me. He's just making, because I'm pressuring opposite lane, it's not really doing that much. I can actually ignore the left-hand lane because it's gonna be a one-tower game, right? Like, I don't really care about that damage. I'm just trying to make him, like, expend elixir. A lot of my units are only ground units, so I can't really just combat him one-to-one like an executioner deck. I can't go same lane as him. I have to pressure opposite lane. I have to make him expend elixir. I have to make sure that he's not throwing elixir on my tower to convert it into damage. So I get in a really good situation right here. I realize that I can just poison him out, and I basically just take the dub.
Really nice. You know, the big takeaway there is just how much pressure you put on that opposite tower throughout the entire match, not just the beginning or the end or the middle. You know, like, consistently, you played a lot of defense through chip offense.
Yeah, that's what you gotta do, especially when you only have Electro Wizard as your only card that shoots up. So
yeah. I think that's what would you say the easiest matchup for this deck would be?
I mean, I feel like the Minor Poison with 3 Skeletons kind of gets wrecked by this deck because the Bandit just kind of thrives. Because then they'll have to use their Knight to defend because Skeletons don't defend a Bandit. If they use their Knight to defend, then they don't have Knight plus Ice Spirit for the Minor. Can't really drop an Electro Wizard on Minor Poison. Therefore, like, the deck kind of just spirals out of control in a mirror matchup when the dude is running Skeletons and you're running Bandit. Other matchups are when they have Golem and they don't have very much air defense or ground defense. If you realize their card order, you can actually go in for prediction logs, hit Skarmy, hit Goblin Gang, and just kind of finesse them. It's crazy how games can just spiral out of control because one Bandit connection.
And if people out there don't have eWiz, what would you recommend subbing in for eWiz?
So I saw an interesting variation. I saw Ice Wizard for Electro Wizard, and then I saw instead of Bandit, I actually ended up seeing what was it? Bats. So that was an interesting variation. And then I saw actually, yeah, I would just swap in Ice Wizard. That would probably work the best. It's different though. You might want to swap in bats for skeletons, just so then you have better air defense against like LavaLoon.
That's smart. So Ice Wiz for E-Wiz if you don't have E-Wiz, and then swap in bats for the bandit/skeleton spot.
Yeah.
Tag, anything else before we let you go? Any shout outs? What's coming up on your channel, man?
I'm probably going to be covering a lot of decks like Minor Poison on my channel. I'm just covering a lot of great Grand Challenge decks that I find successful. I really hate covering decks that just simply don't work. I'm never going to put up a deck on my YouTube channel that I can't get 12 wins with or anything that's trolly. I like having fun with the game and actually trying to get better as I record videos. So that's the biggest thing that I do. Like, I'm recording videos just because I'm having fun with decks and decks that actually work.
I appreciate that because, and I can attest to that because I've reached out to you numerous times in the past just to see what you were playing, and like oftentimes you've been brutally honest, or not brutally, but just honest and being like, dude, I'm not playing anything right now that I think is share worthy. So I can definitely back you up there in terms of just bringing the highest quality decks and content that you have. So thanks again for coming on, man. Always enjoy you coming on, and guys, make sure you toss him a sub.
Thanks, man.
No problem. We'll have to get you back soon. Oh, last question. Are you going to use this deck in the 20-win champion challenge or whatever?
Yeah, for sure. It's by far the most successful deck that I've had. I got 33 wins and 0 losses the first day that balance changes came out.
Nice, man. Well, I'm going to go try the deck. Thanks again for coming on. Huge shout out to Tag. Always love when he comes on the channel. Huge shout out to all of you guys and to Bren Chong, my YouTube partner. Make sure you check out him as well as Tag in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, take care, guys.